and bewitching, and the milder post-Enlightenment sense of deeply entertaining. New Yorkers and others attending the inauguration of the country's first president were certainly enchanted by the tolling bells, the fireworks, the magic lantern displays, and most of all, the charismatic presence of their beloved hero, Washington. Having suffered 7 years of devastating war and occupation, then another half a dozen years of uncertainty about the fate of the new republic and their own city, New Yorkers were overcome by an awesome sense of relief, pride, and gratitude for their good fortune on this day. Still, something more than secular enchantment was afoot in New York on Inauguration Day. George Washington's invocation of Providence signaled a magical, miraculous dimension to this auspicious occasion. Sharing with most Americans of his time the doctrine of providence, the belief that God acted directly in human affairs, he had throughout his life experienced this in a spectacular and widely acknowledged fashion. Washington's whole biography had seemed an act of magic, though he would never deign to use that word. New Yorkers loved to tell the story of Washington's extraordinarily fortunate providence in August 1776, when a heavy fog suddenly dropped over the East River to hide the massive retreat of the Continental Army that he had ordered after the 3-day-long Battle of Brooklyn. In July 1755, shortly after becoming one of Major General Edward Braddock's aides-de-camps, Washington was close by Braddock as a member of his force of 1,400 men as they forded the Monongahela River to attack the French and Indians at Fort Duquesne. As they were ambushed by whooping Ottawa and Pottawatomie and surrounded by 900 French soldiers, the scene quickly devolved into a slaughterhouse. Sent by Braddock to retrieve 2 lost cannon and to direct a charge up a nearby hill, Washington was forced to ride all about the battlefield, where, despite having 2 horses shot out from under him, he miraculously escaped the rain of bullets, half a dozen of which ripped through his coat. In letters, speeches, and conversations, Washington consistently employed providence to describe the inscrutable workings of an omnipotent, benign, and beneficent being that he alternately called the great ruler of human events, supreme ruler, author of the universe, and, in the language of his brethren Freemasons, grand architect. Washington amalgamated Freemasonic deism with his homespun practical stoicism to shape a much more liberal philosophy of life than the superstitious providentialism of the United States Puritan progenitors, who tended to see the working of the spiritual world for good and ill in even the most trivial of events. Along with Washington, all of the members of Congress, the governor and foreign ministers, judges, and other leaders who attended his inaugural address looked upon this earlier providentialism as primitive superstition. Yet they themselves were hardly free of superstition and magical beliefs. Washington's kissing of the Bible, Jacob Morton's marking of the passages, and the widespread interpretation of the biblical text as prophetically affirming the United States' own providential destiny all subtly hint that beyond the popular belief in divine miracles, even the age's most enlightened acted in an enchanted manner, especially on ceremonial occasions. In 1784, George Washington had learned from his close friend, the Marquis de Lafayette, of a more direct form of magical enchantment, animal magnetism. The Viennese physician Franz Anton Mesmer's term for a method of healing that he had discovered in 1779, and of which Lafayette, one of Mesmer's first students after his arrival in Paris, had himself become a devoted practitioner and proselytizer. Just before departing for America in June 1784, Lafayette had written to Washington to share his enthusiasm for Mesmer's great discovery. "I know as much as any conjurer ever did, which reminds me of our old friends at Fiskill's interview with the devil that made us laugh so much at his house, and before I go I will get leave to let you into the secret of Mesmer, which you may depend upon